Boom. Here we go. Welcome
Here
one,
we
welcome
go.
all. We are now recording.
Check.
Time to be more professional.
Kinda, sorta.
Just in case anybody who's listening to this was wondering, this is a podcast where Brian and I talk about whatever we want. This is a conversation. We take far less responsibility for the contents of this podcast than we do, for example, for an educational piece of information that we would put out. But this, you're listening to a conversation essentially that we would have if we didn't record it. That's all this is.
Stories by Rob Wilson.
Stories by Rob Wilson. You know, the human is a storytelling mammal, sir. So I'm just being more human. That's all.
Mhm. Let me tell you the intimate details about this particular subject.
What's the story without details, you know?
I know, buddy.
You love it. Tommy gives me a hard time about the same thing. She's like, are you going to tell me this whole thing right now? I'm like, yep, I am.
I am well aware that that is probably a thing with your wife.
Oh, yeah. You guys just want cliff notes. Like, unless it's your turn to tell a story.
Most people do, unless they're like turning on the TV or reading a book.
Give me the cliff notes right now. Don't make me pay attention to something that you're saying this long, Rob. We don't need to know this. I do go on a little bit too much sometimes. I know it, but it's part of how I talk. Can't help it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I beg to differ, but
people like to mess with me about my word choice as well.
Oh, whatever.
But I
I
don't
mess
care.
with you with that, but
Yeah,
that's
you do.
interesting.
That is literally just how I talk. That's what happens when you're bored and you're a kid and your mom's like, go read the dictionary. Here you go. You want something to do? Read this.
Mm-hmm. So what's going on?
What is going on?
Other than you've got sunshine.
I know I got some sunshine. I'm trying to get back into a rhythm of reading. I really haven't been reading enough, other than for work. I mean, like if it's directly work related,
Mm-hmm.
I read quite a bit, but I really haven't been doing much pleasure reading, and it's no bueno. I gotta reestablish that habit, because I like it, but I've been way too screen driven for entertainment. I got into like a mode around Christmas time where I was like wanting to watch things from the level of like story analysis. I was like, oh, I want to understand how these stories are put together. And then it just has drugged me into way too much screen time, for visual screen time. It's like, I got to break this. I need to segregate this from other activities more. But I have a stack of books that I need to read, that I want to read, and I have more books that I'm like, oh man, this is interesting. I want to get into this. And I'm like, I just can't justify buying another book right now.
I downloaded Jim Loehr's book.
Did you?
Yeah. I'll finish it on my drive back.
Oh, you're doing the Audible?
It's only like 4.5 hours.
That's the most recent one?
I think so, yeah.
He's got like 17 books he's published.
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
It was the one Tim.
The one where they talk about journaling?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
It was the one that Tim put in the show notes. So.
Okay. That makes sense. That's the most recent one that he did and that they're talking about for most of the show. That was a really interesting. I really like his approach. You know, I really like his approach, and I like that he gave this contrast between, you know, they were talking about Michael Jordan and Roger Federer and some of their differences in the way they went about things. And I just like how respectful he was of both processes, but still went back to like, well, here's what I've seen, like this is my experience, even in these cases where people are extraordinarily successful at achieving their outcomes, often they feel unfulfilled still.
Mm,
And so a lot of it ended up boiling down to how you treat other people, like, and I think that's pretty universally true. It's like, oh man, that guy's a bad mofo at whatever, fill in the blank. And you're like, yeah, but he's a dick. It's like nobody wants to be around you. And so unless you're a sociopath, it matters, even if you say it doesn't. I don't care. I'm happy being alone. It's like, well, if you really are, you're probably a sociopath, just technically speaking, right?
hmm
Usually it's not true. So social intelligence, man, it really matters
Does.
a lot, you know?
Does. It's it's a lonely world being a professional athlete. Even on a team, because you got usually a team's a bunch of individuals. At least that's what I've seen. So that there are a bunch of individuals striving to stay a part of something that keeps them relevant and pays their bills. Um, and it's a sacrifice for sure. And so having family and understanding that stuff pretty early on, and making sure to keep those who are close to you close, is an important thing. And there's big, I mean, I there's just such big differences between like what I saw with the Last Dance, and like then you see like the Weight of Gold, and then it's like the athletes you've worked with and the stuff they talk about and what they're dealing with, and you're like, wow, there's a real problem like it's going on. And it's not, I'm not blaming anybody. It's just like there's just a real problem that nobody's really addressed. And you've got a guy like Jim who's existed here and has been working with these folks, but it's like that's on an individual level, man. Like that's never caught any traction until maybe Tim Ferriss now. Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not common practice.
no, I mean, people are still in awe, or like are in joyous praise of Michael Jordan, like for being the greatest athlete in the world, for sure, as they should, but also for being a prick. Like it validates being, it just validates a lot of assholes' positions in life. These are the same people that have gotten in trouble for a lot of shit that's been going on, right? Like I can just run over everybody.
Yeah, it's like, where's our value structure then, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
if it's only outcome based, like, it doesn't matter. The ends justify the means. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
that sounds nice unless you're the person getting
Yeah. And
trampled
look,
over,
and I'm
right?
not bringing up anything that really like, I mean, and for, I highly recommend anybody who catches this to go listen to the Tim Ferriss episode with Jim Loehr and listen to the whole thing. There isn't a single world champion that he didn't work with when he got down to it, broke them down and asked them to answer questions of what was most important to them, that none of that superficial shit that everybody's running towards was on that list. None
No,
of
it
it.
was all about like, I want to be a good father. I want to be a good partner.
Good person.
Yeah,
Like,
I want people to remember me as being honest.
yeah.
I really like the thing you said about what do you want it to say on your tombstone? Now you have X amount of words to put on your tombstone. What do you want it to say? And that's heavy. It's kind of interesting because I did Jordan Peterson has Understand Myself, and he has the Future Authoring Program. And the Future Authoring Program, you essentially write an essay about how do you see yourself in 5 years if you become everything you could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has another essay where it's how do things look in detail if you don't do those things. And so it
Oof.
gives you you have to actually explore the dark side where it's like, I didn't do what I knew I should do, what I could do, and this is what my life looks like. And it's like examining that is like, hey, it's not this sort of like pie in the sky, like write your 3-year goal down on your fridge and you just march towards it. It's like you got something you're walking towards, but there's also a shadow, you know, there's a shadow just behind me.
Yes, there is. I knew you were
Right.
going to go there. I knew you were going to go there.
But it's true, man. It's like it's good to know, right? Like, oh, I don't even have to do something bad to slide backwards. I can just stop climbing towards those things that I care about. And it's interesting because he was like, when you ask people about their value structure, a lot of times they don't even know what it is.
Hmm.
And I had to sit and think, I'm like, do I know what my value structure is? I'm like, what's my credo? That's the thing. He's like, what's your credo? And like, how does that propel you forward? And I mean, I know for me, it took a lot. I never thought of it that way, but I definitely, for me, I have one. But it's interesting to think about in terms of when you're working with high performers. It's like, what's going on inside? Like, that's great that you can do all this other stuff, but it again deals with the human and human performance, which I think is the
Yeah.
most neglected component of performance is the human being. Um, we tend to have a very sort of utilitarian approach to the way that we treat athletes. That's why it's easy to celebrate, you know, even if we're just assuming like, okay, everything was exactly true and that the Bulls documentary, Michael Jordan was a meanie head, and and people didn't care because hey, he's winning championships or whatever outside the court.
Yeah.
If you're the viewer, it doesn't matter because you don't have to deal with him.
Hmm.
You're just addicted to the emotional ride that you have satisfied by vicariously experiencing his accomplishments, but you don't have
Hmm.
to live with him on a day-to-day basis
No,
and have him tell you at practice like, hey, you're a lazy piece of shit,
you can
like
do better than that.
you
Get
suck.
yourself up.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I
And
don't care. I don't care if you're hurt.
yeah,
Get
and
out of here. Leave.
yeah, and I mean some of that was his standard for himself was
Oh, oh,
incredibly high, right?
100%. 100. No, no, 100%. His standard for himself was probably even higher.
But it is true that it's not such a joy to be around those folks.
It's true. No, and I mean, I don't want to take anything away from, the fact that I got to observe arguably the greatest person, the greatest sportsman in the world. Maybe not, greatest athlete we've seen, right? Um, at least to date. Sure, there's been really good ones that have come after, but he literally changed how a game was played. Most of his records still stand. Like, I mean, it's just like he organized a team the way he did. Whatever. Like he did some great stuff. But I'm just so enamored with human behavior that I'm like, oh, like
Hmm.
there's a very dark side to this.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want it. I'm okay with me. I'm okay with where I'm at. Like sometimes maybe I'm not, but I don't know that I'd give that up for that from what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I couldn't I couldn't trample over my relationships in order
Mm-mm.
to achieve an external outcome.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's not to say every relationship is worth maintaining either, but it's at the same time, it's like, how are you going to be remembered? How are you going to be remembered on your deathbed? What are you going to be
Like
thinking about?
that question weirds me out. It's
Why?
always weirded me out. Like when people are like, what do you want to be remembered for? Like when people say like, I'm I care about, like, I don't know. It's like, why do you need to be remembered for anything?
Well, you're going to be remembered for something,
It ain't
right?
gonna matter. Just so we're clear.
Well,
Like,
I mean, not
you're
from
not gonna you're not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here when I'm gone.
right. Like, I mean, but you have to be careful because you tread a fine line between that and becoming nihilistic and cynical because,
Nah.
right? Because I'm not saying that's where you are now. I'm just saying us in general have to be careful because if it doesn't matter, then what's the other than immediate social consequence, what's the motivator to contribute anything worthwhile? Like if it doesn't matter, then why contribute? So it's like, you know, the alternative to going, well, whatever, is to live a meaningful life. And part of that is that you care about your reputation. And when you're how you're remembered when you're dead is essentially the continuation of your reputation. I mean, you don't want to be overly concerned with it, but just like for us, and we know, and this is true in lots of different fields, but we know that, like, especially when you're talking about being invited to speaking engagements or to contribute in little like meetings of the minds or be invited onto projects, the way that you carry yourself in relationships has at least as much to do with being invited as your actual expertise, right? Like, and we've seen that over and over, and that's all reputation about not just what do you know, but who are you as a person, how easy are you to work with, and what you're remembered for when you're dead is essentially a continuation of that, and that stuff affects your family. So if you have kids, some of my reputation is gonna, at some point, it's gonna affect my daughter. It's like when she's, you know, we'll just assume I'm going to be in a casket. She's standing next to my casket. Is it going to be alone in a fucking empty room that she cries over me? Or is it going to be with other people who got some value out of my existence and can comfort her? So I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of like thinking about it, like, my dog's laying here right now and he's not really that concerned over what I think about him when he dies. And there's a certain peace in that.
Cares about what you do right now.
He does care about what I do. Yeah, he cares about right now. But since human beings are endowed with the capability to comprehend and conceptualize the future, the existence of a future, not for ourselves and for those around us, then it tacks on an additional level of responsibility to our behavior. Like, that's why he's willing to fight over a bone. Because he's not worried about how long he's going to have to live with these other dogs. He's just like, right now, I fucking want this. I don't know, man. It's interesting to think about. I don't really have the answer. I don't know
It
that
is.
any of us do.
I don't know. I just, I'm more like I'm more focused, like, presently, like, I like how I want to be treated, and how I want to treat people, and I'd prefer to have a smile on my face, like I used to not have as much of a smile on my face. Like I remember, like I was on a ride today, my mountain bike, and I remember vividly, you know, being on my bike and not smiling when I'd go by people, just like trying to do my thing. And now today I literally was smiling the whole time. And I was like, yeah, that's what I like this better.
Yeah. Yeah, because you ride because you actually are doing something for the enjoyment of the action itself, right?
Yeah.
Like you're riding because it's not like, oh, I got to do this track in this certain time. You're just like, it's nice out and I want to move my body through space. And you're a rider, man. You like to ride bikes. Like, so you're just actually taking some joy in riding your bike.
Yeah. But it
Right?
used to not be like that. It used to be so serious.
Yeah. I mean, and then at some point you realize like, wow, this isn't very fun.
Yeah. Wow. This isn't fun.
And it's
Yeah.
hard to get other people to come ride with you if you're
Yeah,
so serious, right?
like
People are like, "Oh god."
surf culture in Southern California now. It's not just Southern California. You go up to North, like Santa Cruz and shit, and it's
It's
just a
it's everywhere, dude.
nightmare, dude. Like people who are so aggro, just like aggressive, pissed off. Like, why are you in the water? Like,
Yeah.
go
Supposed
go be by yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
it's yeah, even people here in the water, and it's small surf here most of the time. Guys are like, you know, get I mean, there of course there's some etiquette in the water, but if you're observing etiquette, it's like guys like scowl at, if the lineup's a little busy and you paddle out and you get a little scowl and you're like, "You're out here too, man."
yeah.
Like you can scowl at me because we're both out here.
Oh, you because you're first. Got it.
Yeah. It's like
You
you
were
were
here before
first.
me.
Yeah, you were first today, right? But it's like sometimes I go to spots and guys will look at me or whatever, and I'm like, man, I've been surfing here since I was 10. Like I've been surfing here for 30 years. Like, and you know what? I'm glad you're here because the ocean is enjoyable. I can wait. There's no money riding on this. I'm not. This is how I feed my family. Like we're out here because this is recreation. Same thing happens in jujitsu. Guys get in it's jujitsu. There's another layer of emotion because you're being dominated physically.
Mm.
Some guys take it, you can tell they take it real personal when things aren't going their way on the mat. I mean, I don't always enjoy it either, but you kind of have to laugh, like if you learn how to laugh at it. It's kind of like, well, guess it wasn't my day today. And to remember, like, what's the context? Like, what are you even here for? What are you even, what are you even here for? And, people that I've worked with who are high level jiu-jitsu competitors, when they figured out like that they should enjoy it more, they actually start performing better because they're more relaxed. They experiment more, so their learning curve is a lot faster. It's like, yeah, man, why don't you? I mean, we can play hard, but just remember that we're playing. So same thing in the water, but I've definitely seen some. I know you have SoCal and being in Hawaii. People get
Oh,
upset.
yeah. Well, Hawaii is a little different, especially at places like Pipeline or like on the North Shore, because it can get so dangerous. Um, you know, um, and so guys, like if you paddle out there and you don't know exactly what you're doing, I'd say 80% of the breaks for me there. Like I shouldn't, like if it's 6 foot plus, I should be on the sideline. Like I should be not involved in what the high level guys are actually doing, because I'm a threat now, because I don't know how to make clear decisions as they do on where to go, when to go, how deep, when, like all of that. It doesn't mean I can't surf, but it just means I've now put people in. If I decide to paddle into a wave that I shouldn't have and somebody else was already on it, like I am putting their life in jeopardy because it is so dangerous. And people, that's why Hawaii was the way that it was. It's nothing like nothing what it was. I mean, bro, guys were pulling people out of the water 20, 30 years ago, just dragging them out of the water and fighting, beating them up, you know?
I mean, that's an etiquette thing too, though, right? Like you got to be. I mean, there is a bit of being respectful, and knowing what if something's a little bit above your pay grade, but at the
Yeah,
same,
I mean, but I've taken pride in like going in and doing things like a little bit above my pay grade. Like, all right, I'm going to go down this hill, or I'm going to go paddle out into this bigger surf, or whatever.
yeah, that's
Just
fine as long as you're willing
if you're
to,
gonna do that, you got to be more aware of the people who are around you, and be much more cautious.
for sure, and be willing to swallow the consequences of such decisions. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you paddle out somewhere you shouldn't. You might get hurt in the surf. Somebody might say something or do something, and the same thing's true for the mat. Like if you try to try to bully somebody who you're not really equipped to bully, you might get bullied back. I'm not saying it's necessarily the right thing. What I think is funny is like kind of circle back, but like we'll be here. I'm in Virginia Beach, and it's like 4 foot sandbar break. And guys are acting like it's year's best at pipe, and I'm like, timeout. It's not that serious. Like
Yeah.
we're all. This is easy. This is easy pickings. We're out here having fun. Like
Yeah.
yell for each other. Take a wave off and yell for the other guy. Be like, "Woo, nice one!" Like, be cool. We're all out here just trying to get a break from the rest of the world. So
Yep. And you'll get those guys. You'll get those people in Hawaii and California and Virginia Beach, and those are the people you want to be surfing with.
for sure, I had a guy who I went to high school with, who this is at like a pretty like one of our breaks that is generally the best First Street, and there's a guy harassing a kid, just yelling at like a young kid about mistaking the water, yelling at him, trying to get his face. And this dude that I came up with picked up like one of those metal trash cans and just like threw it. It's like wham. It's like, leave that kid alone. I was like, man, shit's getting serious out here at First Street, and it's like 5 feet, 5 foot faces. I'm like, you guys gotta chill. We don't need to be hitting each other with trash cans and trying to yell at children. This is crazy.
Crazy town.
But yeah, like, what are you even trying to what are you even trying to accomplish with whatever your practice is? Like, what are you doing here? Like, might as well smile, have a nice time. You're gonna get a lot more out of it, and you'll also have some people to hang out with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the goal, man. Just enjoy your time.
Yeah, enjoy your time. And for me, like, one thing that was really cool last night, I was telling Tommy this, like, I was rolling last night, and this young lady came up. She's, I don't know, maybe she's like 17 or 18, tiny little gymnast who does jujitsu with us.
Hmm.
She weighs all maybe 110 pounds at the very most. And
Wow.
I'm creeping up on 250 right now. And she was like, "Hey, you want to roll?" And I was like, "Man, that's cool that like it made me feel good that she felt safe." You know what I mean? Like, oh, Rob's cool. Like I can roll with him. Like I can roll with a 110-pound female. We can have a good roll. And she's not worried about, me hurting her or, being unsafe. And I was like, man, that's a good sign to me. Like, okay, I'm acting right here. I'm doing the right thing. And that this young lady feels comfortable to come ask me. I was like, okay, I'm on the right track. So more so than when someone's like, puffing their chest and is like, let's do this. Those are fun too, but that's not my measurement if I'm acting right.
Yeah,
So I think that's a good spot, man.
it's a good spot, bro.
Episode 13. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a good week.